Hello, everybody. My name is Franco, and you are watching Frank Analysis and Hear Me Out podcast. And today, I'm going to talk to you about the Sunrise Movement and how they are corrupted. And this might not be a surprise for some of you who already keep up with Robbie Yeager and articles from Mint Press News or Steve Poikonen of Slow News Day. But I still see many people being very proud of working for the Sunrise Movement or sharing the Sunrise Movement to their friends. And it's understandable because the Sunrise Movement, the purpose of them, that they present themselves to these young people, is that they're for these environmental policies that's for sustainable energy, so that we can have a more sustainable future that doesn't destroy the planet. It's unfortunate that these people don't know that the Sunrise Movement is essentially corrupted by the oil industry, which is the industry that people who are fighting for sustainable energy need to be fighting against. Now, I want to just a word of advice. When you speak to people who support the Sunrise Movement or have worked for the Sunrise Movement, it's important to not tell them right off the bat, stop supporting them, stop working for the Sunrise Movement, they're bad, they're corrupted, stop doing it. Because what that does is that automatically triggers a defense mechanism on these people, and they resist what you're saying. It's the same thing if you were to tell a Trump supporter, to stop supporting Trump. You think that they're going to listen to you just by you telling them, stop supporting Trump, he's bad. What is a better way of getting people to let go of something that is going to be against their own interests is to tell them to be conscious about it. You know, if I were to tell somebody about the Sunrise Movement, and what I know is just, look, I'm going to give you this information, these facts, and in the end, you make your own decision, okay? I'm just telling you to be conscious about it. Don't just let what I tell you go and pretend that they don't exist, because these things are true. I'm just telling you to be conscious about this stuff. So when you're out there supporting the Sunrise Movement, if that's what you decide to do after you hear this information, you're aware of it. You're cautious if you see anything else that's sketchy. So the Sunrise Movement, like I said, is pretty much corrupted by the oil industry. Robbie Yeager and Cory Morningstar and Whitney Webb have all done great work on researching this corruption. And I'm going to tell you guys some articles to read if you have not yet read them. And please also share this video, share these articles that I'm going to talk about, and share other videos that also talk about the Sunrise Movement's corruption, because people are still supporting this movement heavily. So Robbie Yeager went on Slow News Day recently with Steve Poikonen, who's the host of that show. Please subscribe to that channel. I highly recommend it. And Robbie Yeager is pretty much talking about how they're essentially a dark money group, because the Sunrise Movement is a 501c4, which means that if you're this kind of organization, that you can take as much money as you want from whoever you want, and you don't have to disclose where that money came from. And you can use this money for so many different political purposes. Now, the Sunrise Movement transferred, and this was mentioned by Robbie in that video that he was in with Steve Poikonen, they transferred $400,000 this year alone, and the year's not over yet. Last year, so they transferred that money to their PAC, and last year, in 2018, they raised $500,000. So they're already set to surpass their 2018 record this year, and the year's not even over yet. And another thing that I want to mention is that the Sunrise Movement only cares about the Green New Deal. The Green New Deal does not do anything about abolishing fracking, which has a high rate of accidental leaks which then destroys ecosystems, which then causes cascading effects that affect so many other organisms and ecosystems. And when you have all these pollutants on plants, on animals, they're all eating each other eventually. That stuff, where do you think we get our food from? If we're getting food from like if you eat wild salmon, or if you eat even farm raised fishes, through runoff, a lot of these pollutants that come from fracking can end up on these fishes' food. They ingest that. When you eat those fish, you're ingesting all those pollutants and they wind up in your body. So I'll start out by talking about Whitney Webb's article on Mint Press News. In her article titled "Corporations See a Different Kind of Green in Ocasio-Cortez's Green New Deal," she talks about how what the Green New Deal does is it advocates for this cap and trade system. Now, cap and trade is controversial, and I'm going to explain to you why. Cap and trade is controversial because it essentially enables industries to buy and trade permits that allow them to emit certain levels of carbon. This system allows big oil companies and other fossil fuel extractors and refiners to purchase credits for emissions reductions elsewhere instead of just reducing them directly. As a result, this system has been widely criticized by environmental groups as well as in the Green Party's original Green New Deal because it both creates complex and easily gamed carbon markets with allowances, trading, and offsets, and does little or nothing to reduce emissions, but often increases emissions instead. So it's kind of counterintuitive, you see, with the Green New Deal, which the Sunrise Movement highly advocates for. It can lead to, instead of reducing carbon emissions, you can get an increased amount of carbon emissions because of this cap and trade system. Thus, cap and trade is a system that would do next to nothing to address the two issues at the heart of Ocasio-Cortez promoted Green New Deal. It would not address climate change. As such, systems have been shown to not reduce emissions and instead increase them. It would also not address the issue of wealth inequality, as the system would instead create a cadre of so-called carbon billionaires. Furthermore, already implemented cap and trade systems have been fought with fraud and have been used for profiteering by organized crime in Europe. Perhaps most telling of all is the fact that cap and trade has been promoted most heavily by large oil companies. So you're going to take advice from the people you're supposed to be fighting against? These large oil companies? These Green New Deal activists are going to take advice from the people they're supposed to be fighting against? Indeed, it was recently revealed by none other than Shell Oil executive David Hone, Shell being the 9th largest producer of carbon emissions globally, that his company's lobbying efforts were largely responsible for the inclusion of a cap and trade system in Article 6 of the Paris Climate Agreement. Again, this David Hone guy, this is somebody you're supposed to be fighting against. Same with all other big oil executives. So Whitney Webb goes on to say that though the actual Green New Deal of the Democratic Party has yet to be written as of the time of this as of the time that this article was published, with Pelosi at the helm and the current language used in its current form, the Ocasio-Cortez promoted plan is all but certain to include cap and trade as a major component of its plan to tackle climate change. Yet, as has been recently pointed out, the inclusion of such a system will do little to solve the issues the plan ostensibly seeks to address and will instead empower America's oligarchy, as well as big oil companies, without making a dent in the country's annual carbon emissions. So you see the counterintuitiveness of what the Green New Deal and the Sunrise Movement, which is advocating for the Green New Deal, does. So read that article in full. It goes into more detail about how this was stolen from the Green Party. And please check out this other article that I'm about to read by also on Minpress News. This one was written by Alice Slater and Medea Benjamin. And this article is titled "The Green New Deal Advocates Shouldn't Overlook Militarism." Now, the Sunrise Movement also never calls out the military, and the military is the top contributor to carbon emissions into the atmosphere. And we're continuously increasing the military budget. And these Democrats that are supposed to be resisting Donald Trump are voting for this increase in the military budget, are also voting for sanctions on other countries that have oil that the U.S. that the U.S. corporations, oil corporations, want to gain access to, like the oil in Venezuela, in Syria, in Libya. And these Democrats, they vote for this stuff. AOC, she doesn't call out the coup in Venezuela. So in this article by Alice Slater and Medea Benjamin, they mention that the environmental crisis was laid bare by the sobering December report of the UN Climate Panel. If the world fails to mobilize within the next 12 years on the level of a moonshot and gear up to change our energy usage from toxic fossil, nuclear, and industrial biomass fuels to the already known solutions for employing solar, wind, hydro, geothermal energy and efficiency, we will destroy all life on Earth as we know it. Now, I do want to point out that is a bit hyperbolic what they said. I am a biologist. What the scientific literature actually says is that what will actually happen as of the time of this article was written, it was 12 years, now it's 11 years. What will happen in 11 years if we don't do anything about climate change is that these effects of increasing the Earth's temperature will likely continue, and it will be almost impossible to reverse. This does not mean that life won't adapt, that certain life on Earth won't adapt. Are we going to take that chance though? Are we going to take the chance that if we'll adapt to it? I wouldn't take that chance. It's better to have a cleaner environment out there, right? As opposed to not only affecting all life that's out there, but also affecting your health in the end, because having all these pollutants out in the atmosphere and also getting contaminated in the food that you eat, it's going to affect your health. So continuing on with this, the existential question is whether our elected officials with the reins of power are going to sit by helplessly as our planet experiences more devastating fires, floods, droughts, and rising seas, or will they seize the moment and take monumental action as we did when the United States abolished slavery, gave women the vote, ended the Great Depression, and eliminated legal segregation? So these things, they weren't just given to us. We fought for these things, and we need to fight for these things too. These more sustainable energy system, because like I said, it's going to affect you directly too, like this stuff. And the environment is part of your extended self because you interact with it. I mean, where do you get your energy from? It's from food, right? You don't want your food to be contaminated. So they go on to say that environmentalists need to contest the Pentagon's staggering global footprint. The U.S. military is the world's largest institutional consumer of fossil fuels and the largest source of greenhouse gases, contributing about 5% of global warming emissions. Almost 900 of the EPA's 1,300 Superfund sites are abandoned military bases, weapons production facilities, or weapons testing sites. The former Hanford nuclear weapons facility in Washington state alone will cost over $100 billion to clean up. The U.S. military has also spread toxic chemical contaminants in and around bases worldwide, sickening millions. And some ways in which you don't think about how pollution spreads because of the military is when they do testing, like when they do sonar testing, This affects organisms that rely a lot on echolocation and finding their food and communicating with other individuals in their species. And I actually did a presentation on that, on how the US military and their Navy, when they do sonar testing, is a big contributor to a population decline in whales and fishes. Now, here I would say that this article is, if you don't get to read the other articles, this one is the most important one for you to read, because this explains this explains the financial corruption of the Sunrise Movement and how these corporate elites are exploiting this movement to galvanize the youth into doing something that could essentially be against their own interests, because they don't know that they're working for the people that they're supposed to be fighting against. So Robbie Yeager writes on his article on medium.com, his article called Shedding Light on the Sunrise Movement. He explains the Sunrise Movement is a 501c4, and like I said earlier, you don't know if a 501c4 doesn't have to disclose where their money comes from, and for what purposes they use their money for. The Sunrise Movement's origins is a bit of a complicated tale, and one that has been documented before. Evan Weber, Matthew Lichtash, and Michael Dorsey, who at the time was a director of the Sierra Club, joined forces with Sarah Blazevich and Varshini Prakash, two young promising activists, and the Sunrise Movement was launched in 2017. As a 501c4, Sunrise has also a 501c3 and a political action committee, which was started before Sunrise officially incorporated into the entity they are now. Dorsey, one of the founders of Sunrise, came over with the Sierra Club's influence, brand recognition, and their money. In fact, the Sunrise Movement got their first big break when they received a reported $30,000 grant from the Sierra Club in 2017, along with office space that belonged to the grantors, which Sunrise still uses. This is where the questions begin. Sierra Club has many organizations and nonprofits under its umbrella, but one of its main organizations' function is as a 501c4, which means that as long as they spend less than 50% of their expenditure on political activities, they don't have to disclose their donors. According to tax documents filed for 2017, Sierra Club reported over $126 million in contributions. And while they disclose the amounts of 295 donations, some in the millions, not only do they not disclose the sum reported, no information whatsoever was disclosed about the individuals donating. What is interesting is the other form of contributions Sierra Club received, stock options. Oddly enough, at least for an environmental group, are the companies with which these contributed shares belong to, such as $11,000 worth of Lockheed Martin stock, $20,000 in BP stock, and over $50,000 worth of Southwest Airlines shares. And Robbie Yeager provides the documents in his article for you to look at. Sierra Club took $397,000 from the Rockefeller Brothers Fund as well. Sierra Club has also had the backing of the enigmatic billionaire donor network Democracy Alliance, which was founded by the granddaddy of Democratic megadonors, George Soros. As I've touched on in a previous article, Democracy Alliance's primary function is to basically put together a political investment plan for various nonprofits, mostly 501c4s, and to have the mostly anonymous network of elites help those organizations meet and exceed their budgets. With Sierra Club's track record of secrecy in regards to their donors, there is no concrete way of knowing how much money has been injected into their coffers from Democracy Alliance affiliates, and Sierra Club is far from the only group associated with the Sunrise Movement that can be financially traced to Dark Money Super Network. Robbie Yeager also mentions America Votes. He also talks about 1630 Fund, Tides Foundation, George Soros Open Society Institute, Hillary Clinton and Priority USA donor Rosalie Danbury. All of these are establishment corporate actors who are in it for their own self-interest. Now the last article, which I won't go into much depth, but I will tell you guys to please read. It's long, but it's worth the read. It has 6 parts to it. This was written by Cory Morningstar, and I have it up here on the screen for you to read and to check out on your own. I have all these articles linked in the description. It's called The Manufacturing of Greta Thunberg for Consent, the Political Economy of the Nonprofit Industrial Complex. So again, guys, please check out those articles, share this video, share other videos that talk about this stuff. And again, don't tell people about the Sunrise Movement in a way that will create resistance from them and will probably cause them to be in denial about this stuff by telling them, don't support the Sunrise Movement. Just tell them, you can support the Sunrise Movement, but be conscious about the information I'm going to tell you here. Be conscious about the articles that I'm going to share with you. Because you want to be doing the right thing without being used as a tool for something that is going against what you're actually fighting for. With that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Like, share, subscribe so that to help this channel grow. This channel is focused on finding solutions. I have several guests on in which we discuss how we can solve the problems of this world to make your life better and this world better. Have a great day. Thanks for watching that segment of Hear Me Out. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell down below so you can get the latest on sports, pop culture, and progressive politics. Stay informed.